actually happens.
Hold on one second. I'm going to have you start over because everybody's freaking out. My dogs are freaking out. All right, sorry, man.
We're good.
I think somebody was at my door, like fucking with my house or something. Because I was like, as I went up there was a guy like standing. If I was in my living room looking through the blinds, and I saw somebody on the other side of the gate just like fiddling with something, but I couldn't quite see through the gate. And then he walked off down the street. But I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Fucking FBI. Hey, thanks for clicking on this video. Before we head on, please like, subscribe, comment, share. Give this video to your grandma. Let her really cherish. And don't forget that we have now a Patreon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Revolutionary Rhetoric. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Patreon. Give us your money and give Palestine some money at Revolutionary Rhetoric. Everywhere you get your socials and Patreon.
All right. Now on to the video.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Episode 34. How are we doing today?
This is extremely awkward. I'm in a different bubble, a different square.
You may recognize that the squares are different and we look different and everything is just different, but it's okay. Change is sometimes normal. Yeah, Kanan is not in the commie bunker, the commie basement.
I look like I'm in purgatory with all this light around.
It's very blue, yeah.
Yeah, it's very blue.
I was just commenting like I didn't quite appreciate how good our like camera and lighting setup is until seeing you right now, and I was just like, well,
the thing is, like, this camera is not a bad camera. It's a Lumix G7.
No, it's a nice camera. It's just through Zoom. It doesn't have the same filters. Yeah, and I think like 60% of cameras is lighting, right? So like,
yeah. What's crazy is that like there is nothing blue around me. Like there is nothing of in this room is blue, but somehow there's a blue tint, there's a blue hue. So, and that's how it is with any type of camera I've used in this room.
It's just a
anyways, guys, thanks for joining us. We're going to be in two separate spots right now. This might be a quicker one than usual just because of the awkward situation of us being in different spots.
But this is a good time to remind folks that if you have no idea what the fuck we're talking about because you're listening to the audio only, there's a video version of this podcast. So when we're talking about Kanan looking blue and that we're in different rooms, go check out the YouTube channel, Revolutionary Rhetoric Podcast, to see what we're talking about, to look at our beautiful faces if you're an audio-only listener. And likewise, if you're looking at this on YouTube and you've only ever watched this on YouTube,
you're like, these guys are ugly, man. I just want to listen to their voices.
Perfect. Yeah, the opposite problem. You don't want to see our faces. You only want to listen to the audio. Get us wherever you get your podcasts on, any Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Although Google Podcasts, I guess, is actually ending. Stitcher, we're on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. All the links are down below.
Yeah. I really wasn't thinking about that. Like, we're talking about all this, like, hue, color,
I realized,
tint, and then
I realized last thing,
like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, when I was editing the last podcast, the audio version, because as we've mentioned, I edit the audio, Kanan makes the videos. As I was editing the last audio, we were just making so many references to videos and just what people look like and stuff, and I was like, oh, this must be really alienating for the audio listeners. So
I don't think so. I don't think
maybe
so.
Not.
Like, hear me out. When you're reading a book, there's just descriptions of how people look, and we let it play in their imagination how everything looks around. Maybe they get off on it.
Get off on? Okay. Well,
not like in a sexual sense, but maybe like it increases like the mysteriousness and like the pleasure of listening to the podcast.
Well, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that if the two different modes you can enjoy the dulcet tones of Kanan and Tyler talk about depressing
next
news.
Is a 3D model.
Yeah, we're gonna go next level.
VR, do a VR podcast.
And if you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and give us a subscription. Hit that subscribe button, give us a like, leave a comment. Tell your friends about it. And if you're listening on the audio, give us a whatever. We can do all that at the end. But I just wanted to get the YouTube plugs in at the beginning.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's get this show on the road.
Yeah.
Well,
we got a few random things to talk about. Because kick it off with Mexico elects their first female president. I don't have a ton to say about this. You had added this to the notes, Kanan. Did you want to kind of take this one?
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. From what I understand is she was in the same party as AMLO. AMLO was the previous president of Mexico. She was the mayor of Mexico City. And from what I've heard, is that she did not do a very good job. But in the spirit of visual, or the spirit of like advancing, I guess, in a political sphere where women have more political power, it looks real good that Mexico has elected a woman president before the U.S. has. And I mean, it's kind of sad that the U.S. hasn't elected a woman president yet.
Yeah.
But we call other people around us basically barbarians and uncivilized.
Yeah, we have. I think there's this kind of idea that like Mexico is this like incredibly Catholic, like patriarchal, traditional society, and yet here they are electing a woman, and not only just a woman, a Jewish woman, for what it's worth.
Yeah, apparently she celebrates all the Jewish holidays. I'm not 100% like very understood or understanding of like what those Jewish holidays entitle, so I should probably educate myself more on that. But she's like grew up actually like grew up living in a Jewish household and actually practicing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've understood. I don't know too much about her specific politics, like where she stands on certain issues.
So it's very similar to AMLO.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a social democrat-esque.
Yeah. This is describing her as a secular leftist. I wouldn't go so far as to say leftist, but
yeah, I mean, she's a leftist when it comes to American politics.
Sure, fucking goddamn radical compared to which is funny because that's what we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about. Just how far right American politics are. But yeah, it's
just come more and more right.
I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what she can do. I wondered, like, I know that there was some beef with the Mexican cartels. I think there was some.
That was like the number one thing from what I read on the articles. That was the number one problem that people really wanted to be adjusted, and people wanted to have changed, because the cartels are just so powerful that it doesn't matter who comes into power. Basically, they have everybody in a stranglehold on anything. And right now, I think not in the presidential election, but in all other elections in Mexico, from like city council, senators, their congress people, they've had the most political assassinations in this political run and this political
I was reading that.
This political election campaign than any other political election campaign prior to what's going on now, which is I don't know what that really means, what that entails to. It could mean that the cartel is kind of scared about things changing, or it could just mean they're trying to give off a warning that they think that anything is going to change with the new candidates coming into power, that it's really not.
Kind of saying like, you play your little politics game, just leave us out of it, and like let us just do what we're going to do, or do what we've been doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And one of the things that people did criticize AMLO for was that he kind of was a little too much kissy to the cartel.
Yeah.
But, like realistically, it's just like, what are you going to do? The cartel has a stronger military and a stronger like presence in the physical territory of Mexico than the actual Mexican military. So
yeah, I don't know if it was this podcast or what I was saying, but like I think it's the cartels are one of the largest employers. Not just in Mexico. I think this stat says they're the 5th largest employer in Mexico. So like the cartel as an entity is the 5th largest like jobs provider in Mexico. But I think like on the world stage of like the Fortune 500 whatever, they're like comparable to some like massive corporations. Like they like employ like as many people as like Walmart does.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, like when you have that many people in when your military is that powerful, like a cartel military, that it outweighs Mexico's military, which is large enough on its own.
Yeah, which is not insignificant. Exactly. Yeah.
That's pretty scary. But for what I understand is most of the cartel's weapons actually come from American weapon manufacturing corporations.
Oh, yeah. Did I tell you the story where I sold weapons to the cartel?
No, are you gonna get shot if you do tell it?
No, this is fine. I'll keep it anonymous. I was working when I was in college. I worked as a part-time sales guy behind a gun counter at one of the large like sporting good chains. I don't. It's no secret on the podcast that I'm like pretty pro firearms, and I own quite a few guns, and have owned a lot of guns, and I'm a safe, but I'm a hobbyist or a collector, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I sold guns for a while at a chain, and I was just a gun dealer or whatever. And there was a kid who came in, and are you familiar with what an M249 is? A saw, like as you play any video games?
No. I mean, I did play video games, but like it's
a big machine gun. It's a SAW stands for squad automatic weapon. The M249, if you played any Call of Duty,
LMG?
whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's a big LMG. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big machine gun. So FN makes it.
How are those even available for sale?
Well, it's semi-automatic. If as long as it's not fully automatic, it's a semi-automatic.
I know,
so one bullet per.
They
hold considerable. Yeah, there's converters that take AR-15 mags, but there's also like 100-round box mags you can throw in it. They just shoot 5.56, 223, like the same bullet that an AR-15 shoots. The point is that we had a couple of those. I sold P90s, I sold MP5s, whatever. So like the guy wanted to buy a saw. He's 18 years old. He's wearing he just got off work wearing like construction clothes, right? Like he's wearing like a neon orange long sleeve shirt with whatever, I forget the name of the construction company, whatever. It's kind of dirty. Boots, jeans. The guy just got off work doing construction. I forget exactly how much it was. It was 11,000 or 12,000 maybe for the gun, somewhere in the north of 10,000. And he just pulls out hundreds for it. It's just wads of hundreds that are all crisp. And flanked on either side of him are these older Mexican gentlemen wearing like cowboy hats, just decked out in just gold and turquoise. The sweet belt boot, the boots that have like the big cowboy boot, like turquoise toe, and there's like the belt buckles and gold 1911s on their hips, like gold pistols on their hips, and just like these guys are like serious looking, and they're just standing kind of off to the side and just flanking this guy while he just pays cash buying a machine gun. And then all three of them just walk out with their machine gun. And that's, and I have no proof that it was the cartel, but I'm like 99.9% sure that I just sold a machine gun to the cartel. We're going to use
this gringo to fucking buy our shit for us.
Yeah, I mean, like he passed his background check. I mean, it was a legal sale, you know what I mean? Like he's an 18-year-old adult, and that's not for nothing. One of the problems with firearms industry and like the gun laws in America is that was a legal sale. That probably should not have been a legal sale, but it checked all the boxes of like there's nothing we can do, and we were kind of in the back like we're all seeing what this is, right? Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that was too much information, but it's fine. So
there was no specifics.
Yeah, there was no specifics. They don't even know what state that was in. Yeah. Anyway, that's the story of when I sold an M249 sauce to the cartel. So
yeah, hopefully nobody clips that out of context.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I bought my first gun. My first gun I ever bought was in the parking lot of a Red Lobster at like 2 a.m. So like, gun laws are loose.
Yeah, a little too loose for my liking.
Anyway, so I don't know. Yeah. We can move on from the Mexican president story. It was interesting. It was just a piece of news. Historic. We'll see what happens. It would be nice to see the cartel kind of problem curbed, and
I think the only way the cartel problem will be curbed is from within the United States. I don't think that anything the Mexican government can do would actually curb.
So you heard it here first. Canon supports American intervention in Mexico.
No, I support.
I know, I'm kidding.
Fucker. I support America stop supplying them weapons.
Well, we're actually going to talk about the drug war or the war on drugs here in a minute.
Yeah.
Because that's going to come back. That's going to be our final story. Is I'm going to tie it. I'm going to go on a long loosey-goosey and tie it back to the war on drugs. But we can move on to just kind of our main theme after the Mexican president. Our main theme for the evening, which we kind of alluded to earlier, is the conservatification of American politicians, most notably one Joseph Robinette Biden. Joe Biden signed an executive order today, I think, or maybe yesterday. I don't know. I got my days mixed up. But Joe Biden signed an executive order this week, which essentially outlaws asylum-seeking migrants at borders and ports of entry. So specifically, the executive order caps the number of migrants seeking asylum at all ports of entries to an average of 2,500 per day. So that's what the actual executive order does. So after 2,500 people have requested asylum, we close the borders. And we no longer take asylum-seeking petitions. However, we're already over 2,500 a day. So the executive order says that when we reach that cap, we will shut it down for until the number gets back to 1,500 per day. And that's per day, averaged out over a 7-week period. But because we're at over 2,500 every day already, the law just essentially just goes into effect where we just close off the border.
Yeah, but here it's essentially a permanent close of the border.
Yeah, it's permanent because the numbers haven't been to 1,500 since July of 2020. So like it's basically just those numbers are at, they're not going to hit 1,500 again. So like it's just a permanent close of the border, and like ACLU activists and like migrant activists are pissed because like Joe Biden essentially just did what Trump promised to do for years. Joe Biden just did. So Joe Biden is being Trump better than Trump is. And like this goes back to the broader theme we're going to keep tying this back to, which is if you think Joe Biden is a Democrat, you're wrong. Or rather, if you think Democrats are on your side or are the party of humanitarianism or, being a good person, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Democrats
no,
are evil ghouls that shut down the border. So like, I mean, this is just Joe Biden doing what Trump promised he would do and couldn't. And not for nothing, this is what Joe Biden promised he wouldn't do. Specifically, I have a quote here. Quote, "It is a betrayal of what we were told in his campaign 4 years ago," end quote, said Lindsay, I'm going to butcher this, Toczlowski, the executive director of the California-based Immigrant Defenders Law Center. So this is the point is, no shit. Like, obviously, it's a portrayal of what he campaigned on. He's a Democrat. They lie. They will say whatever they can to get into office, and then they will do the opposite of what they said because then they'll campaign on it for the next election. Because Joe Biden is campaigning on helping migrants at the border now. Unironically, he'll say that to your face and say, donate to my campaign so we can help these migrants while signing executive orders blocking the border.
Well, here's the thing. When we're speaking of ideals, what we believe in as a person, you have to understand that Democrats are the typical, I will, finger in the wind, which way is the wind blowing? How can I get more people to vote for me? They don't go based on ideals. They go based upon like, how can I get the mass amount of population voting for me? Mm-hmm. And a good way to understand this is Biden is now stepping to the right of himself to appease to the Republicans.
Yeah.
To make him look, because if you take a look at polls, Trump is actually leading in basically border security.
Yeah, it's not just leading; he's destroying.
Destroying
Biden. He has a 30 percentage points. Biden has a 30-point deficit behind Trump. Trump is ahead of Biden specifically on border security. On when asked like who will have a stronger border, Trump beats Biden 30%, and even among Latinos, that's like 20% or 24%, I think. So it's like even among Latinos, that's a massive percentage for Trump. And so I have to wonder, in light of just the election coming up, is this just a political stunt to try to soften that gap, to try to lower that gap?
It is. That's my point.
It is. Yeah,
that's clearly my point. It's like it's politics. It's not ideals.
Yeah,
we are, as lefties, we believe in certain things because those are our ideals. We believe in a better world. We believe in certain things to improve society. These politicians, specifically the Democrats, are just putting their finger in the wind as wherever they can get elected, they will go with that. And that's basically what Biden is doing. He's basically meandering towards the Republicans like, hey, look, I did what Trump couldn't do. You should now, sift your vote toward me. So he's just trying to take voters away from Trump by enacting Trump's policies that Trump wanted in the first place but could not get. And he said in it was like one of this NBC article that he will deal with the legal repercussions later because it was basically in an executive order. And so he could be doing these things all the time for the left, but no, he's going to be doing them for the right, for the Republicans to sift their vote. If he wanted to do things for the left, like, cauterize or whatever the term is for Roe v. Wade to actually make it into actual law, he could have done it. Yeah. He could have done it, but he's not going to do it because it's not going to sift people from the right, that the Republicans, over to himself.
I lost camera again, but you keep going.
That's the whole point. It's just like, it's just politics. It's a politician. They're going to lie in whichever way they can to make sure they win, right? Including saying things that you want to hear, but never enacting on those things that are going to actually make a difference, at least from a leftist perspective.
No, 100%.
When you think about like abortion, or we think about healthcare, the biggest, I always repeat this one, the biggest indication of them all how politicians, specifically the Democrats, are corrupt is in, I think it was like 2012 when Obama had a supermajority where he had the entire Congress, he had the majority of judges and the presidency under a Democratic belt, and basically at that point he could have enacted any law that he wanted without fuss, without objection, because they would have just overrode it democratically. But he didn't. In fact, he enacted a right-wing think tank healthcare plan, Obamacare, which is literally just Romney care from earlier on. And then Republicans opposed the Romney care that they believed in because it's just fucking politics.
It's fine now, so we'll see. Hopefully it's good now. I just had to reset, so it's going to be a little jarring because it'll be slightly resized when it comes back. Anyway, yeah, I mean, everything you said is totally right. It's I just made that post to my personal Instagram, and we reposted it on our Revolutionary Rhetoric Instagram.
By the way, would you follow us, please?
Yeah, go ahead and give us a follow if you're on Instagram, Revolutionary Rhetoric Podcast. We post gold. Solid gold. But yeah, it was that thing about like that guy surprised or something. I forget what the actual take was, but like that Democrats aren't doing anything on abortion, and it's like, yeah, obviously they wouldn't. Why would they? Like, think about it for half a second. That's where they make their money. You get those emails the same way I do. You get those phone calls the same way I do of like Democrats begging for money. They're going to fix abortion. They're going to fix the border. They're going to do all this stuff. You just got to give them $5, just $10 more, just $20 more. Get them in office, give them your vote, and they'll fix it. They have set up a money-making machine. It's a money-printing machine, and that you give them money because you care about abortion strongly, just like I do. You care about immigration strongly, just like I do. So you want these things to be fixed. And because you're altruistic and because you're a good person, you give some money to these people because they say they can fix it. But how then would they get your money for the next election if they did fix it? If they did fix any of these issues, you wouldn't have to give them $20 next election. That would be it. It would be a service. It would be, services rendered for money. It would be an exchange instead of a subscription service. Like it's a electoral politics is a subscription service that you pay with your vote and with your money every election. And every election they say they're going to fix it, and they never do. So why would they fix it? It's just like it doesn't. If you have half a brain for business, why would anybody actually? Why would they fix it? Why? I don't know.
I'm going to say something a little controversial. When they're asking us for money, I think that's an illusion of them trying to look like they're grassroots. I don't think they even need the money.
Oh, they don't.
Like those messages you constantly get. Nancy Pelosi's blah blah blah. Give $5-10.
You're wrong.
They don't need that money. They have corporate money. I think that itself is an illusion to try to make it look like they're grassroots and they're getting their money from the average person.
100%.
And that might only be like 2%, 3% of their money. They really don't need it. And I think that is an illusion itself. So if you're giving them money, just know it's going to nothing. It's not
100%. Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, it's something I hadn't totally considered. But yeah, because I mean, take a Republican for example. The Koch brothers are giving Mike Johnson, millions of dollars. When you get an email from Mike Johnson asking for $5 or whatever, he doesn't really need that. That's him appealing to your sense of like, you actually feel like you're making a difference. Wow, when Mike Johnson gets elected, I really made a difference. I helped him. It's like, no, you didn't. Yeah. He got millions from big oil and tobacco and firearms or something. He didn't actually need your money. The NRA paid for his campaign, but it makes you feel good. And the Democrats are the same way with their their interests. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a good point.
You know where I think that comes from originally is Bernie. That fucker over there, Bernie, because Bernie was I wouldn't say he was the original person, but he really popularized like that grassroots term back in 2016, 2015.
Not taking actual CPAC money or
exactly, and then CPAC, just having actual. Because I used to donate to Bernie too back in the day.
Oh yeah, I donated to Bernie in 2016, 2012, whenever when his first couple.
2016
campaigns.
And all the way up to 2020, and after 2020, I was like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, and then he turned into a lib, but yeah.
Yeah. But then I noticed once he kind of stepped down, Joe Biden was like, hey, you should hand some money. We need money for grassroots. We need blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, you're just picking up what looks well, not what you actually need.
Yeah,
before sending you money, why are you taking money from Lockheed Martin? Why are you?
Yeah, Boeing, whatever. I mean, Boeing.
fucking Aetna. Like, why do you need their money if we're sending you money? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, ready to move on to the next story?
Yeah.
Or do you have anything else to say about Biden just being a conservative?
I think in general, the Democrats are really just the conservatives in general, but they're also more manipulative politicians.
Yeah.
I think Republicans just don't give a fuck. They found their base and they're going to stick with it, and the Democrats will flow wherever they need to. If you remember, Joe Biden was the one who wrote the crime bill in the 90s, which was insanely conservative.
Yeah, that's the last story I have. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, well,
I got a little story for you.
Then.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the ICC thing real quick before because I'm gonna rant for a while on Biden. So I want to get this ICC story out of the way. It's pretty small. We can make this pretty minor. The House voted to sanction the ICC again because the ICC, as you recall, released some arrest warrants for a handful of people, among them Benjamin Netanyahu and Gallant. I think he's the defense minister for Israel.
Yeah,
for their war crimes.
The IDF.
Yeah, for their war crimes and for everything short of genocide. The ICC, whose job it is to catch war criminals, saw the war crimes being perpetrated by the war criminals and said, "Hey, here's an arrest warrant for these war criminals." And then the American politicians said, whoa, those war criminals are our friend, so you cannot issue an arrest warrant on them. So there was a House vote to sanction ICC, to which, surprisingly, all but 2 Republicans voted for. 2 Republicans voted present. They didn't vote no. And not an insignificant amount of Democrats also voted for, a couple dozen. I have a quote here from the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. He called the ICC's action to sanction or to issue the warrants for Netanyahu, quote, outrageous and unconscionable in a press conference Tuesday morning, which was this morning. Quote, the ICC has to be punished for this action. We cannot allow this to stand. If the ICC was allowed to do this and go after the leaders of countries whose actions they disagree with, why would they not come after America? End quote. And exactly. You know what, Mike Johnson? He kind of said the quiet part out loud. He's like, hey, wait a minute. If they can go after war criminals like Israel, that means they can go after war criminals like us. And I think he
criminals like us, but he basically said that.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. I mean, I think that's the fear, or at least that's the worry.
If you're open, this is going to open a door where if we are going to be able to prosecute these people from Israel for war crimes, up next is us, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
so we got to stop this in a track.
This could, imagine a world where these institutions that had jobs to stop war criminals actually did their job and stopped war criminals. And Mike Johnson does not. Mike Johnson doesn't want to live in that world. The world's too dangerous for people like him and his friends. So I don't know. That just kind of goes to show you that both Republicans and Democrats are, in strong support of what's going on in Israel. With the Palestinian people. I should also mention, though, that while Biden has said that he disagrees and thinks it's ludicrous that the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, he says that this bill is not, it goes too far. So he said he won't sign it if it goes to his desk, which isn't really the point. The point is that it can pass in the House.
Oh, he will.
Yeah.
He will sign it.
You bet he will.
He's just saying this because
it has to go through the Senate too.
Elected.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's it would just need a couple of Democrats to stand against it. Like Bernie Sanders, for example, he probably wouldn't sign this bill right in the Senate. So that would be a 49 to 51 if every Republican or if every Republican voted in favor of it. But I guess I don't know. I mean, you don't need. All you need is 1 or 2 Democrats. I guess is the other flip side of that is in the Senate. All you would need is a couple Democrats to support this, and then boom, you got a majority.
Yeah, but I don't know how much I trust even Bernie anymore.
Nah, he's been pretty vocal, not anti-Israel, because he's still pretty anti-Hamas. He condemns Hamas, but he's
Hamas.
Yeah, he's still the actions are unconscionable. The actions of October 7th. That's not a good Bernie.
That's actually not that bad.
Was that not bad? Okay. I'll work on it. But yeah,
he's put a little bit more lip to it.
Yeah. like wet your lips a lot. Yeah, he's come out like against October 7th, against Hamas, but he's still been like, but what Israel's doing is too far or whatever. So he's a both sides, or he's a two-stater.
Well, I mean, we're all against innocent civilians getting killed, but like the understanding of what October 7th was.
Yeah, but that's more my point. Is he's missing like the broader material conditions that kind of led to that.
Yeah, I think that's just his own heritage clouding his judgment.
Yeah.
I do want to say a few things.
Yeah, what do you got?
In this article that we brought up from the NBC News, so despite like Biden's criticism of the ICC, other allies of the U.S. and Israel, including France and Belgium, have defended the court's independence. Mm-hmm. So there are Western nations that are now slowly starting, I wouldn't say to be in favor, obviously, of Palestine, but they're kind of like, okay, man, this is just like pushing it far. Like there is only a certain distance that you can push us until we have to like kind of be open, like, yo, this is not okay. So Belgium and France have basically defended the court's independence, saying you can't sanction the ICC when you're a major part of the ICC, and you can't just like blatantly say control international law whenever you want. Yeah. So this is a good first step, because especially a country like France, next step would be like England and Germany. If we can turn those countries against the U.S., the international favor of Israel, which is already quite slim as it is, would really start turning around. And I think things like that court order of Netanyahu getting arrested could actually happen. But we'd have to get basically everybody on the planet besides the U.S.
Like Germany already said that if he steps in, on foot in Germany, that he would be arrested. Exactly. So like we just need, like you said, England, France. I think France and Belgium are like close. I don't know. England, I think, is pretty pro-Israel. But I don't know. I see your point of like that's what it's really going to take is like a unified, all the Western leaders kind of rallying behind that, because
there's a breaking point is all I'm saying, is that we can reach that breaking point, and I don't know, for different countries it's going to be a different breaking point, but the more countries that slowly start falling off that bandwagon of pro-Israel, the faster this can be resolved. And I also want to say that if this does happen and we do arrest Netanyahu, we talked about a couple episodes ago where basically the Hague Act that America has this like secret little hidden gem up their sleeve. It's not the Hague Act. I forgot what it was called.
That's what it was informally known as. I forget what the actual.
It's informally known as the Hague Act. I'll put it up here in the video for what the actual term is. And basically, it says if an American diplomat or a U.S. troop or somebody,
anybody, really,
any American gets put in the Hague for war crimes or something like that, America has the right. Nay, the opportunity to invade the Hague and basically take over the International Criminal Court, which is absolutely fucking crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Netanyahu would count as an American agent, even though I say he would.
Yeah, I don't know if America would care, but I mean, I think if we're playing out the hypothetical that Netanyahu flies to Germany and German police arrest Netanyahu and deliver him to the Hague in the Netherlands. Would America invade to bust out Bibi? I don't think so.
He was born in Philadelphia. They could be like, oh, he's an American citizen by birth.
I don't think he was born in Philadelphia. I think he lived in Philadelphia. I think we had to retract that, because I think we said in one of the early episodes that he was born in Philadelphia. He wasn't. I think he was born in Tel Aviv, but he like grew up in Philadelphia. He went to like school in Philadelphia. I'm pretty sure.
He was born in Tel Aviv.
Yeah. I think one of our early episodes we misspoke. We thought he was born in Philadelphia. He was not born in Philadelphia. He was born in Tel Aviv. But he did.
But he grew up in Philadelphia.
Grew up in Philly. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, at least we have that open and clear now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to our next one.
All right. So this is what we were wrapping up with. This goes back to just Biden being kind of a lot more conservative than people think he is. Even people like, because you saw those dumb like op-ed articles of like Biden's the most liberal president we've ever had or whatever. And it's like, no, he isn't. Like, I don't know where people got those ideas from, but like he's really not. And the one thing I really want to talk about is something I think I've referenced once before. Maybe I haven't. I can't recall. But basically, it's what it comes down to is the civil asset forfeiture idea, or this idea of asset forfeiture, civil asset forfeiture, which you're right. It was part of the larger 1994 kind of larger crime bill, which was called the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984. You were referencing one from the 90s, which was a bigger omnibus crime bill that got passed in the early mid 90s to crack down on more gang violence that was happening. This Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 84 came because of the big push of the war on drugs with Reagan. So this was before what you were referencing, but it's still kind of in that same vein. And for anybody who doesn't know, civil asset forfeiture, or backing it up in just asset forfeiture, is that, say you're arrested for a crime, right? So where it really comes from, or like a good example of this is during the 20s and 30s, during Prohibition. There's a speakeasy, the feds raid your speakeasy, you get arrested. Well, the liquor that was there gets seized, right? Obviously, they're not going to let you keep that. That's seized. So now that's the government property. Typically, they would destroy it. If they catch an illegal pot farm, they would take the pot and burn it. Right? That's asset forfeiture. So what that eventually got rolled into with the 1970 RICO Act, and if you're unfamiliar with the RICO Act, it was the racketeering and what was it specifically? I should have this ready. It's the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, which basically means that if somebody is guilty of a crime, you can tie that crime to somebody else if it's part of an organization. So if you can prove that there's an organizational link, then you can arrest everybody. And that's kind of how they went after mob bosses in the 70s. And so that law also broadened what could be considered asset forfeiture. Now, the big distinction is that you needed to have a conviction to take somebody's stuff. So if you wanted to take a mobster's house, they had to be convicted. So they had to be arrested for crimes, racketeering, whatever. And then once convicted, the government could take their house. They could seize their house, they could seize their cars, they could seize their property. Well, what this Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984 did was it took that idea of asset forfeiture and just removed the stipulation that you had to be convicted. They can now take your stuff, your house, your car, money, guns, whatever they find. In the commission of a crime, if they see something and they can link it to the crime, they can just take it prior to conviction now. And so if you've ever wondered why like police departments that used to come to your elementary school would have Lamborghinis or Hummers as like their police department vehicles, well, that's where they got those cars. They didn't buy those cars. They just pulled someone over, found an ounce of weed in their center console, and then said, well, you can't prove that you didn't buy this Hummer with weed money. So because you can't prove that you didn't buy it with weed money, we're just going to take the Hummer.
Yeah.
And that's civil asset forfeiture. And that idea of civil asset forfeiture and that Crime Control Act of 84 was championed, authored, and like spearheaded by Delaware Senator Joe Biden. I call him Robinette Biden. Joseph Robinette Biden, his real middle name. So Robinette. So it's just, this is like what gives police basically just complete road piracy. If they pull you over, they can just take money from you. They can take your car. They can take whatever they want from you. And you have to prove that it wasn't purchased by like money that came from crimes, which is it's like proving a negative. It's incredibly difficult to do. If you just bought something from Craigslist or whatever, or just bought something, if you bought a stereo with cash 5 years ago and it's in the trunk of your car or whatever, like obviously you don't have a receipt. Obviously you don't have any proof that you bought that, so they can just take it and say, well, you got to prove you didn't buy it. You got to prove a receipt. I don't have a receipt for that. Well, then we're just going to keep it. So that's like why police stations have random shit, is because they just literally steal it. And so another catch to this is that they have to prove that the value of the items is like relative to the value of the crime, basically. But it's left up to the individual police's discretion of what that value is. So it just gives police the power to just say, yeah, I think this car is approximately the worth of an ounce of weed or whatever.
Yeah.
It's insane.
God, I remember this like statistic. It was like every year the largest amount of theft that actually happens.
Hold on one second. I'm going to have you start over because everybody's freaking out. My dogs are freaking out. Anyway, sorry, you were just about to say you had started in a sentence of like something like a certain percentage of something is from civil asset forfeiture. I'm not sure where you're going.
So I remember a statistic, and I just kind of looked up a little bit while you went upstairs, that there was more theft of value of personal items caused by civil asset forfeiture than actual theft from stores, from corporations.
Oh, I believe it.
From whatsoever. And I just found that this is under the Rockefeller Institute of Government, right? And this is, believe it as much as you want, but in 2014, apparently from their article, the total annual dollar value of assets seized by federal law enforcement was $5 billion.
Yeah.
Surpassed total burglary losses of $3.5 billion.
Yeah, so it's more by like a third. Yeah, I believe that. I have no problem believing that. I mean, here's the thing: is everything we know about police is like just absolutely how corrupt they are, how violent they are, how like mismanaged, how misappropriated their money is. Like if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, and then you give them a law that allows them to just take whatever they want out of your car. Carte blanche. They can just steal anything they want from you. You think they're not going to do it? And so there was one anecdote that this article I was reading kind of highlighted, which really highlights the problem with this. Is that I was reading this story, and I want to just double check kind of what it is, or like what the specifics of it is. But it was in Hawaii, and there was a young man. I'm not going to use names, but there was a young man who was arrested for smoking weed, and he was growing weed in his backyard, but I think it was just a single plant. It was just a single user. This guy was not like, it wasn't like a farm or a factory. It was just a guy growing some weed in his parents' backyard. He lived with his parents, and he was growing some backyard. And I guess he had some mental health issues, and anytime his parents kind of threatened to like destroy the plant or like remove the plant, he threatened suicide. He said he was going to kill himself if they messed with his weed, because I guess that was what was helping him with his mental health issues. Well, he was arrested for marijuana use. He went to, I think he got he got some kind of diversion where he got some therapy and some mental health, and he went got some rehab, and he got better. He basically was, I don't want to use the word cured, but he was able to move on with his life past his arrest, and was healthy, was no longer smoking weed, and kind of it's a success story about the system kind of working, right?
Yeah.
Well, 4 years, this was in 1987. He was, it was his first offense. Here it is. He pled guilty. He was given probation because it was his first offense. He was ordered to see a psychologist once a week, and then he got better. He stopped smoking weed, and that kind of episode was behind him. Boom. So that was in 1987. Yeah. Fast forward to 1991, and the Maui police knock on the door of the home where the guy lived, and they seized the home. They just took the home from the family. The statute of limitations for civil asset forfeiture is 5 years. So 4 years later, the Maui police was just going through case records. They were just going through old cases.
His home; it's the parents' home.
Well, it's where the marijuana plant was grown, and that's it was.
But can they prove that the marijuana plant is what?
Yeah, I think that was because that was in the original case report. No, they can't. But that's not they can't prove that it wasn't, right? So that's the point.
That's the problem.
Yeah, so that's the point. So they literally stole these people's house. They just seized their house.
They just stole a fucking house.
Yeah, because it was for a few years ago, and that was the thing. Is what it was talking about was specifically was they had stolen all the property from everyone they could. So then they knew that it was a 5-year statute of limitations on this. So they were going back through old case files and just trying to find anything they could to go steal. So they said, oh, how about this one from 4 years ago? This guy had some weed on him, but the plant was at the house. Can we go take the house? And yeah, sure, go take the house. So they went and took the house. And so this just goes to show you the level of criminality and corruption of the civil asset forfeiture. I mean, and this is just if you would take this one anecdote and apply it just across the country, we're talking just lives ruined, families destroyed, just truly evil, heinous shit. And this was all championed and just designed by Joseph Biden. So
yeah,
this gives you an idea of the type of guy he is.
There you go. There's your liberal. And as I was talking about earlier, just this person doesn't really have these ideals of, being more open-minded, more left-wing. Is just wherever the wind blows. Because this guy was, if you placed 1984 Joe Biden into today's politics, my dude would be a right-winger, hard right-winger, right? And don't believe for a second that he actually changed his mind or evolved as a senator. At 40 years old, 35 years old, you already believe what you believe, my guy. There's not really too much changing your mind. It's what do you believe at that age is usually what you're going to believe for the rest of your life. He was basically just going with the wind, and in the 90s, we go farther down, and we talked about the crime bill that he wrote in the 90s that imprisoned millions of African Americans, and suddenly 10 years later, he's a vice president of the first black president. I'm really, how how much does it take you to like not believe this horseshit?
Yeah, it's just crazy. And then this is to say nothing of like mandatory minimum sentences that all came out of this era.
I mean, California's three strike
laws. So there's still people serving life sentences for like smoking weed in California, while like it's legal for police to just buy weed on their off hours, right? Like weed is legal in California. There's still people serving life sentences. Those haven't been expunged. Those haven't been like taken away or commuted because of like since weed became legal. But I mean, that's slave labor. What was the anecdote too about all of the employees that worked at the governor's mansion in Arkansas for Bill Clinton were black prisoners that weren't paid. Yeah, and that was like up until when Bill Clinton was governor. He employed. I use employed. He had slaves at his plantation. This white southerner in Arkansas used slaves at his plantation, and that governor or that white plantation owner was Governor Bill Clinton for future president, because like that's. Because the 13th Amendment abolished slavery except for prisoners.
What the fuck?
So like they outsourced that labor, just like, I mean, that's so a lot of people use those labors. You can just buy slaves to like work your plantations and stuff, or like work your jobs. Like a lot of labor in this country is supplied by just slave labor still. Like, and that's a whole other conversation that's like much larger. Man. But I just learned that Bill Clinton's the governor's mansion in Arkansas was staffed like his house slaves. He had house slaves and he had field slaves, and like he just had that was like the people that fucking it just
when was this in like the 80s, the 90s?
Yeah, he won the presidency in 92. So I mean, it would have been late 80s. I mean,
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
It's fucking insane, dude.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Again, Democrat, by the way, Democrat. So just keep that in mind when you think that Democrats are the good guys. They're the
that was 30 years ago.
Incarcerating.
Don't say it was too far ago. That was a long time ago.
This is I don't want to hear that bullshit. Like, oh, it was a different time, my dude. I was alive. like this was in my lifetime. So
crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. Fucking Democrats suck, dude. Democrats are just as bad, if not worse, than Republicans. And I say if not worse, not to say Republicans are good, but to say that Republicans at least will like their evilness is like out on display.
Yeah,
you know they're evil,
and you're
they'll
like,
tell you they're
yeah,
evil. Democrats will be just as evil, but they'll lie about it. And so that's why I say Democrats are worse. Yeah.
So it's like, imagine like you don't like this person. They make it very clear, and you make it very clear to that person that you don't like them back. Mm-hmm. And then there's this person who tries to be your best friend. You can move on amicably,
yeah.
You know, there's this person that tries to be your friend. You be your best friend, blah, blah, blah. He does this, that, and that. And then he stabs you in the back. And you realize that dude was like the same dude I hated all along. At least that dude told me, and I could stay away from him. And this guy, like, he literally, like, slept with my wife or whatever, and, like, you know, stole my money behind my back and reported me to the police for ridiculous things. So, in a sense, Democrats are worse. Because you're getting scammed on top of, like, your the ideals that you would like to be implemented into society not being put into place. Oh, wow. Well, I already knew this, but like I hope some people start to actually see the reality of things.
Let me get you a quote from Hillary Clinton. You ready for this?
Yeah.
When we moved in, I was told that using prison labor at the governor's mansion was a long-standing tradition which kept costs down. A few of them, African-American men in their 30s who had already served 12 to 18 years of their sentences, referring that most of them were convicted murderers, and she became friendly with a few of them. Despite her, I'm quoting from an article from Newsweek. Despite her alleged friendships with these men, Clinton tells her readers, referring to her book that came out a few years ago, "We enforced rules strictly and sent back to prison any inmate who broke a rule." Despite having no psychological qualifications, she later asserts that these men did not have inferior IQs or an inability to apply moral reasoning, but instead they may have been emotional illiterates. So, like, dude, this is Hillary Clinton, the current like moral like the person who's taking.
I read something from like the 1880s.
Yeah, dude, that's like some real fucking racist like white man's burden bullshit. But like and also not for nothing, but like that's where Sarah Huckabee isn't. That's the current governor of Arkansas there. So like I would not be surprised if Sarah Huckabee, like conservative Republican, is still using slave labor at the governor's mansion of Arkansas.
Dude, what the fuck?
So like,
I actually never knew this.
Cool. I didn't either. I saw this on Instagram a few days ago, and I looked into it, and I was just blown away. I was like, yeah, you know what? This doesn't surprise me, and I would not be surprised 100% if like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, like other like plantations, basically like the governor's mansions in these southern states, which I'm calling plantations, probably also benefit from this. But I mean, this isn't like
what they are.
There's tons of factories, like different corporations in the Midwest and the kind of like the industrial Northeast. They outsource like a lot of their labor because they get contracted prison labor because you can pay them like so many cents per day. So it's like 80 cents a day or something to pay, to like, it's not just like, the cliche, like stamping license plates in a prison. Like they'll actually be bussed to a factory, like a Tyson factory, wrapping chicken or whatever, and then bust back at the end of the day for 80 cents an hour or 80 cents a day or whatever the slave wages are. And so like companies just will buy labor from these prisons, and like if you cannot explain to me that isn't just slavery, which I mean it is. So like, yeah. And Tyson, I just used throughout the word Tyson. Don't sue me. I'm not saying it was actually you, but I'm saying like there are corporations that just hire slaves for their labor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at the end of the day, but like at the same time, it's like, okay, we can't have physical slaves. We can't hold physical slaves. It's against the law. But then, like, what if we just place this loophole here where, like,
you criminalize everything they do. Find out what they do.
Yeah, what they like.
Criminalize it. Make it a mandatory minimum of like 25 years to life or whatever. There, boom. That's how you get around whole no slavery thing. This whole no slavery rule is a real drag. How can we get slaves back? Oh, this is how. And that was all Joe Biden, not all Joe Biden. That was in large part championed and petitioned by Joe Biden.
And pushed by Joe Biden. Now supposedly a liberal.
Who's now the most liberal president we've ever seen. The guy who's
if he's the most liberal president we've ever seen, I don't want to know about the other ones, dog.
Yeah, and I mean that goes back to the very famous ratchet effect. We've all seen the ratchet effect meme where Republicans shift everything to the right and Democrats stop any block back to the left by saying we got to work with Republicans. And then every election cycle that happens, which is how you get slave labor in these plantations, which is how you get Biden, not Trump, Biden issuing these executive orders, shutting down the borders and stopping any migrants from entering. It's not a surprise how this happens. This is just more and more, evidence to support this rising tide of kind of, neoliberal, neocon merging of just what is essentially converting into just modern day fascism.
Well, but that's just basically that's what happened in the 90s was like that. Bill Clinton called it like that triangulation.
Yeah.
Basically, like instead of moving more left towards more populist movements on the left, we're basically just going to become quote unquote centrists, aka we're just going to become Republicans, and then the Republicans are going to be basically just fucking outright fascists.
Yeah, because they'll move further right to stay the same distance because they don't want to make it seem like they're like close to Democrats. So when Democrats move to the center, Republicans have to keep that distance, so they move farther right, and then Republicans, the center has now moved relative to where it used to be. So now the Democrats move to the center again. Republicans move to the right. Democrats move to the center again. And before you know it, you're both way the fuck over there on the right wing, and actual centrists and actual leftists are way over there. Not to say that we should ally with centrists because fuck centrists, but like. The point is that like the actual center that has long since been passed.
Yeah, the actual center is literally Bernie Sanders. He's a social democrat.
Like on a global scale, Bernie Sanders is a fairly centrist guy in terms of like most policies.
And that's why like a lot of countries look at our political system and they'll be like, "This is a joke. This is your leftist." I'm like, "How is this person a leftist at all? This is our center right." And you look at them and it's like, well, this person's policies, I would get these YouTube comments all the time. They're like, oh, you guys, this person's a commie. This person's a commie. I'm like, AOC is not a communist.
Dude,
Bernie Sanders is not a communist. God forbid that you have one left-wing idea and suddenly you're a communist.
Hey, people shouldn't be put in cages and die. Yeah,
exactly.
You commie.
Fuck you, commie. But no, we've had comments on our videos where they would basically just like, oh, you guys are communists. I'm like, yeah, well, because we have actual ideals and we're very open about it.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that's an insult?
Well, this goes back to what you said at the very beginning of like, the kind of Democrats being that populist, like whichever way the wind is blowing. And you said something, and I want to just kind of elaborate further on that because I like what you said, which was that like, you know, we have ideals and we just, that's what we believe in. So that's what we fight for. And like talking about like immigration or abortion or whatever, it's like, I would never change what I believe for the sake of an election. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I believe what I believe because I believe it, and because I've like, you know, seen it. It's my lived experience. In some cases, it's what my friends and loved ones' lived experiences. Whatever the case may be, whatever the reason I believe it, because it benefits humanity, because it's the right thing to do, whatever, is what I believe. That doesn't change day to day. That doesn't change who I'm talking to. That doesn't change my situation. When I'm out at a company dinner, I don't like pretend, you know, that I don't believe these things. I believe what I believe. And like, if you don't like that,
there's a time and place for it.
Yeah,
there is a time and place. I'm not gonna just like randomly throw out.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not gonna be like,
guys, I'm a communist.
But I mean, like, I don't just openly say I'm a communist when I'm like teaching public education. But like,
yeah.
But like the things I say, that when I say like, oh, you know, abortion should be legal or whatever, like it's being a teacher is a bad example of this, because I wouldn't say that just arbitrarily in my class. But my point is that when I'm at like a dinner with my family or whatever, like, and the topic comes up, I'm not gonna like lie or avoid it or whatever. And like, that's what Democrats and Republicans do. That's what like libs do, is like curb, like code switch to like whatever you need. And like, I don't know, we have moral principled stands on like these things. We believe what we believe and we stand by them. We have conviction, we have strength of character. And like, that's, I don't know, not to get all like on my high horse, but like, that's what makes us better than you. It's like, we believe what we believe and we stand true to it, and we'll defend each other's like
at least
beliefs.
We're honest.
Yeah, and we're honest about it. And like, that is what makes us better than you. And like, you know, and by you I mean liberals, not you listener, because if you're listening to this, you're probably a communist too, and good on you. Good job, dude. But
it's like, we know what we know what we want. We know exactly where we stand on things. And when they're talking about like bipartisanship, and this is what kills me, like between like the Democrats and Republicans, it was like, this is what we need to do, this bipartisanship, this bipartisan deal. We need to work with the Republicans. I'm like, we're not working with the Republicans. We're just adopting what they want, right? Versus like, if I worked with a liberal Republican, I'm not breaking where I stand.
Yeah, I'm not going to compromise on people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll compromise on a few little things that won't absolutely devastate things, but like, I'm not going to just be like, oh, we got to compromise. And Matt is like, no. This is where I stand, and that's it. That's it. You know, it's oh God, how do I put this? Bernie was the compromise.
Yeah.
You know, with a lot of leftists.
Bernie, AOC, those are compromises.
Those were our compromise. If you reject that, there is no more compromise.
Yeah, and not for nothing, I bet you a lot of people that are listening to this that aren't as like leftist, or maybe are liberals or whatever, they'll thinking, well, then you're not going to get anything done. That's kind of an authoritarian way to think. Like, that's how you just stop stuff from getting done. And I would absolutely fucking push back on that and say that that's what the Republicans do. The Republicans do not compromise. This is what they want, and they don't compromise. And they've been winning for years, for decades. So like, miss me with that, like, well, if you don't compromise, you're not getting anything done bullshit, because that's not true. Republicans don't compromise, and they win every time. So not compromising gets you what you want. Having a backbone, having a spine gets you what you want.
Here's the thing. If we compromise, that's not a win anymore. Because if we compromise that much, what we wanted installed into, law or whatever is not what we wanted in the first place.
Yeah.
A compromise is not a win.
Starting with like Tea Party, or like starting with like Reagan conservatives, then moving on through like Tea Party conservatives, now MAGA and like QAnon conservatives, they have never once compromised, and they have only grown in popularity. They have won elections. They have swept state houses across the country. So like compromising is not some like, noble endeavor. Not compromising is not weakness. Like compromising
is giving in to our enemies.
Yeah, it's
and just we stand where we are, and we're not moving an inch.
Compromise is weakness. That's it. Yeah,
compromise is weakness. Yes.
Yeah. So
there's certain things that where we can, where it won't affect lives.
Sure.
But there's certain things where like,
like if we're having a discussion on like how much we should tax the rich, should it be like 99% or 95% or whatever, we can meet in the middle there. Whatever. Like, that's not the kind of compromise I'm talking about, and I think,
Exactly. And
I don't know. Well, do you want to wrap it up there? Oh, you got more to say?
No, that's.
I mean, we've been over an hour actually, so we kind of,
we're like, oh, this one's gonna be a little short.
And then we had a really good conversation. And as I was reading these articles and kind of researching this whole history of civil asset forfeiture, starting with like prohibition, moving on through RICO, and moving on through these different eras, I'm like, this is something I want to make like a long form video essay about. I want to write something up about this. I was reading these articles and I was like, Jesus, these are good stories. And I found this really great. I'll drop maybe this article. I have no idea. I'm hesitant to say the name of this article. I'll say it's the Mises Institute. It's the Austrian Economics, Freedom, and Peace. It sounds like a libertarian article. It's where I got all that. It probably is. It probably is. It's where I got, because I mean, libertarians don't like police. So like that's kind of the one area where I can agree with libertarian.
Like Ayn Rand.
Yeah, it's very Randian. But like, as I was kind of reading a lot of this information, I was like, damn, this sounds like something I want to like do a deeper dive on and make like its own like video, which we've been threatening. Yeah. We've been talking about making like separate videos on topics for a while, like not podcast conversational, but more like video essays, like, Well, yeah. Awesome. Let's do the outro. Hey, like we said at the beginning, if you're listening on just Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we do have a YouTube channel. All of these are you can watch us talk if that's more your thing. Go to the YouTube, give us a subscription there, subscribe, like, comment, share that video, tell your friends about it. If you're listening on the audio version, leave us a comment, leave us a review on, give us a 5-star review on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave a review. We'll read it on the podcast if you want.
We'll read it on our Patreon.
We'll read it on our Patreon, which go subscribe to our Patreon. Follow us on Patreon. We do have a Patreon. All of this can be found at Revolutionary Rhetoric Podcast. A couple tiers over there gets you some behind the scenes, some cool bonus stuff. You can be live with us as we record, and a huge portion of all of the tiers on Patreon go to support Palestinian relief. So throw us a couple bucks and throw those folks a couple bucks there. And last but not least, follow us on our social medias: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Revolutionary Rhetoric, wherever you get your socials. I don't think I missed anything. What do you got? Anything else, Kanan?
That's about it.
All right, cool. Well, go join some local mutual aid, join some kind of political organization, and read some theory, and just be a better person. Just be a communist. Have that moral superiority that I have, that smugness, that arrogance, that pretentiousness, that pretension.
Be smug from the left.
Yeah, you can have that too. You think this smugness? I worked at this. It took years to cultivate this smug. So. You too. If you work hard, you can grow up to be as pretentious as me.
I'll throw you against a political discussion with Bill Maher.
Oh my God, I would fucking absolutely destroy Bill Maher. That's the thing. Is I'm just some goofy guy in a basement with no like media training, and like I want to fucking talk to Charlie Kirk. I want to talk to Bill Maher. I would love to go up against Tim Pool, because like I have something they don't have, which is facts and logic. And so like if you just
Ben Shapiro would differ.
Well, he would, but he's a little ghoul who doesn't know anything. Well, hypothetically, let's just say that if you weren't yeah, dude, it's just a part of me just dreams, like I'm not like a debate bro, but man, a part of me dreams I could just go toe to toe with those guys, because like, yeah, as long as you just stick to the facts, keep it simple, have the truth, all roads lead to Marxism if you just like care for people. Yeah. So like I don't know, those debates are pretty easy, because you're just like, yeah, I mean, like if you don't care about people, sure, you can, like, because they'll be like, well, what about this, what about that? Like, yeah, if you don't care about the livelihood of your community, then sure, you can take those. But if you do, then your point is moot, and it's really easy to debate people against the facts of communism, because A, everything they say is a lie, and then B, everything you say is like grounded in altruism and just wanting to help people. You will have moral superiority, and they will have baseless facts. So, boom, it's easy.
As Fidel Castro says, yeah, I wear a moral vest.
Yeah,
that's when he went to New York without a fucking bodyguard.
Without bodyguard, just wearing his fatigues.
Not even fucking like a shirt or anything.
Yeah, just an unbuttoned,
green vest.
The unbuttoned vest.
There's nothing underneath.
Yeah, what a Chad. God damn.
What a Chad, bro.
Well, everybody, have a great evening. I'm gonna stop the recording now.